In Chapter 10, our final chapter, I will show you just a few what I might call advanced techniques that are used in shell scripting. They tend not to fall into any other categories, so I've just bundled them together and put them into one chapter here. Let's have a look at them one by one. The first is what I might call debugging. All the programmers that are listening to this will probably be aware of the meaning of the word debugging. For the rest of you, it simply means fixing up unexpected errors in your program, i.e. bugs. So sometimes your script will not work properly. Now when that happens, it is sometimes obvious why it's misbehaving. It might be doing something very obvious and you go, oh yes, that's such and such, I know how to fix that. But then sometimes it's not obvious. And it's at that point that you need to invoke the shell's special built-in debugging facility. It's very simple. There's not a whole lot to it, but it does usually help you fix the problem. It involves script with the -x option. The -x option is actually an option to the shell. So you would have to run your shell script like sh-x and then the name of the script, as you can see on the screen. Now what that does is just before each command is about to be run, the shell echoes out to the screen exactly what it's about to run. And the important point about that is that all special characters such as wildcards, variable substitutions and so on have already been substituted or processed by the shell. So you'll be able to see what variables are actually set to and what wildcards actually expand to and so on. So the simplest thing to do is to probably have a look at this. Here's our contact script that we actually completed at the end of Chapter 9, and I've introduced a little bug into it. And I'm not going to tell you where the bug is, I'm just going to run the script and see what happens. So we'll run it now, and the file is test.dat, and it's in the create record section, so let's have a look at that. I'll just enter some rubbish. Are these details correct? Yes. Okay, so we've got an error message. /contacts, file name, ambiguous redirect. Okay, now what does that mean? It's a bit difficult to tell. Now we could look at the code, so let's do that. So I'll quit out of this and quit, yes, and we'll go down to the actual code where that is created, which I believe is somewhere around here. And there it is. That's the line where it's coming out. I know that because I just put it there. Now even knowing that much is probably more than we would know some of the time, but I do happen to know that that's the line where the mistake is, but I can't see the obvious mistake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the script again, and this time I'm going to use the -x option. Now it is going to make the output look very, very messy, because interspersed with all the output that we want to see will be all the debug output, which is every command getting executed. But that's what we do when we debug, so let's have a look. So it's sh -x and then this script and then the parameters to this script, which is test.dat. Now you can see that all the lines that begin with a plus are what the shell is about to do. So for example, one of those echoes, echo \t 1: create records, so that's echoing a tab character followed by a 1 and then create records, and then you can see that the very next line is what actually happens when you run that particular statement. So it's just a bunch of echoing at the moment, so let's actually choose one of those. We'll choose number 1 because that's where the problem lies. And notice that the very last thing that it's just done is a plus read name. So that's the very last statement that got executed, so it's now waiting for us to type something. So I'll just do all the typing that I did before, and we scroll through each one of those one by one. Okay, so are all these details correct? And I answer yes, because I want the bug to occur. And now somewhere in there is the error, so let's have a look at it. We've got the return 0, then we've got the echo, all that nonsense that I typed in, and then we've got the error message. Now that echo statement actually looks okay, but you will recall, and I'll just quit out of this, that there's supposed to be a greater than file name on the end. and that's supposed to come up on the debug screen, which tends to indicate to me that there's some sort of problem with the actual file name variable itself. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit of test information in here. So I've just added, I want to see what the value of file name is at that point, because there might be some problem there. And I'll run all that again, and we choose option 1, enter some details, and the answer to this question is yes. Now, notice that right here is that echo of the file name, but the actual file name has been substituted, the variable has been substituted, and we don't see anything at all. So somehow that variable is not set to anything, which is a pretty good reason why we wouldn't be able to echo this output into that file name if the file name was actually blank. So here we are back in the code, so that echo statement has served its purpose. So what I would probably do at this point is scroll down to the point where I believe that I've actually set the variable called file name and find why it's not being set. So I scroll down and down and down, and here we are. So that's the point where I'm setting the variable, or where I believe I'm setting the variable, and here is the problem. The variable is actually called fname, not file name. So I've made a little mistake with my naming of my variable. So I can go back to where I was and change that to just fname by itself. And, well, that's going to fix the problem. I know it is because I put the bug in there in the first place. So you'll just have to take my word for it. The program has now been fixed. But the point is, it was made easier for us to find the bug in the first place by using the sh-x. We probably could have found it anyway if we'd spent a bit more time, but the sh-x option certainly does help. I'll show you the most common sort of error that you typically stumble across and where sh-x will help you. Here's a simple script. We've probably seen this sort of code 100 times. Please enter your username, read it, then test to see if that's equal to root, and then if it is, echo out you're the super user, otherwise you're just a regular user. Okay, so let's run this script now. And please enter your username. Now I don't enter a username, I just press enter, and I get sample, bracket, colon, equals, bracket, unary opera expected, and what does that mean? Who knows? Maybe if I'm not new to shell programming, I'd go, well, that's a weird kind of error. So instead, I would do this. I would do sh-x%. Please enter your username, and again I press enter. And the line where I actually do the testing to see if it equals root, that begins with a plus. As you can see, we've got plus, then the square brackets, and then equals root, which immediately makes me think, hang on, there's supposed to be something on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So I go back into the program and think, yes, well, there is something on the left-hand side of the equal sign. How come that didn't get displayed? And the reason is because we just press enter. We didn't set name to anything. So, what's the solution? Well, you might recall that the way to actually make there be something there, even if name is empty, is to do that. And I'll run it again. And please enter your username, press enter. And this time, you can see that just there's actually, this time, there is something on the left-hand side of the equal sign. It's the empty string, but there is something, and so the test program does not have a problem with that. And we don't have any more problems with the shell script, so we could just run it in the normal way this time, and please enter your username, and you are a regular user. Now we don't get any error messages, and everything looks fine. Okay, so that should give you an example of how you can use sh-x for your debugging needs.